So today I'm going to be talking about my writing process. I'm Mark J. Grigson. I'm the author of Sky's End. It is getting published by Peachtree Teen in spring of 2024. Writing a great book takes a lot of time, and I get a lot of questions about how do you get published? What do you need to do if you want to get traditionally published? And reality is if you want to get traditionally published, or if you want to be successful as an indie published writer, you're going to have to write a great book. That's really going to give you your best chance of being successful. So I have a really extensive sort of writing process that I go through. Now, I am a discovery writer, and what that means is that I'm always making up my story as I'm going along. I do have a little bit of a goal in mind for how I want, my story to go, but it can be a little bit fuzzy until I actually get it down. Some people are outliners. I don't have patience for it. I can't do it. So because I'm a discovery writer, I have to rewrite the opening of my book multiple times, probably 5 or 6 times. The current book I'm working on right now was about 5 times before I was like, okay, this is what I like. And I usually have to let it rest for like a couple weeks or a month, and then come back to it and reread it and make sure that it's what I really want. After I find an opening that I really like, I continue writing that draft all the way until about 3/4 of the way through the book, and then I pause. The reasoning for this is because I like my first draft to really be focused on the beginning of the story, whereas my second draft, I really like to focus on the end of the story. And so I don't actually write the end of my book until my second draft. I know it's kind of weird. But because I do it this way, it really allows me to focus on the beginning and my ending. Writing the ending in my second draft in a lot of ways is much more challenging than the opening. The reasoning is that the opening can be really sort of experimental. It can take the story in any direction that it needs to go. Whereas the ending of the book, it's kind of the story really is limited in how it can end. I have some choices that I can choose, but it's a little more limited. And I must pick a good option, or I could leave the readers feeling like cheated or frustrated, disappointed, and have a flat ending. So it's really important. The beginning of the story is really important, because if you lose your readers in the first paragraph, then they're not going to keep reading the first page, the first chapter. All of those things just need to be dynamite. So there's too many good books out there, and people have many other things they can be doing than reading a book that doesn't engage them. So I really focus on the beginning, and then the ending. I want to make sure that they're like, ooh, this is a good author. I'm hoping that I can pick up his next book, and fingers crossed that I have another book after Sky's End. Once I have written my second draft, then, and I feel good about the ending and the beginning, this is kind of where the fun begins. Now, I feel like I'm a pretty good writer, but I'm an even better reviser. I feel pretty confident saying that I'm really good at revising, and I can really change a book that's so-so and make it much, much better. It's kind of my jam. So my third draft is primarily focused on the plot of my story and the main character's arc. Has my character changed by the ending? This is a question I'll ask myself. And what was their journey? Did their choices affect the plot? The third draft is one of my favorite drafts because it's really when my main character comes alive and really has an impact on the plot. After I'm satisfied with my third draft, then I move into my fourth draft. And my fourth draft, this one is a further refinement of everything I did in the first, second, and third drafts. But now I'm also focusing on the arcs, the character arcs of my secondary characters. Have they changed? Have they altered the plot? If I feel good about the book after the fourth draft, and each of my drafts actually get shorter and shorter and shorter. They don't take as much time. The fourth draft takes much less time than the third draft. Third draft takes much less time than the second draft. And second draft takes much less time than the first draft, and so on. If I feel good after that, then I'm going to send it to my beta readers after the fourth draft. If it still needs more time, then I might do a fifth draft. Now, my beta readers are like choice readers, people I trust who read my work and provide me feedback and tell me, hey, this book is great, or, this needs work here, or I didn't connect with this character. They tell me what worked and what didn't work. Based on their feedback, I do a fifth or a sixth draft. And once I'm feeling pretty good about all those things, and I'm kind of a little exhausted at this point, but it needs to go on. So I send it off to my agent. My agent, her name is Heather Cashman, and she's a great editor. And even though I've gone through my book potentially 5 or 6 times already and had my beta readers look over it too, she always spots something. Heather always spots something that my book needs. And so I usually go through at least one major revision with her. Sometimes I go through 2. Usually, though, it's one major revision and then 1 or 2 minor revisions afterwards. And then that could put me anywhere from 6, 7, 8, maybe even 9 drafts at that point. And by then, I'm pretty darn exhausted and tired of the book. But the book's journey is not done yet, because now it's through my agent. We've got it up to snuff, and we're going to send it off to publishers. And it's kind of exciting. So my agent, like with Sky's End, my experience with Sky's End, after I did all the revisions and everything, we sent it off to editors, and it got picked up, and it's going to get published by Peachtree Teen. And after it got picked up, my editor Jonah Heller at Peachtree Teen, we went through together 2 rounds of developmental edits. So it was like almost like 2 more drafts. The first round of developmental edits were the biggest ones, larger, big picture things, and that took about 6 weeks to complete. And then the second round was much simpler, only took me a couple weeks to finish. I was actually worried that it didn't take as long, but the book was really close at that point. Now at this point, I'm done with my major like edits for Sky's End. It's just going to have copy edits and line edits that are coming up, but those are, from my understanding, not going to be nearly as complicated as my whole drafting process. Anyway, that's kind of my process for a book. Might take me, depending upon the book and the project, 6 to 9 months, maybe a year. Middle grade fiction, when I write middle grade fantasy, sometimes I write that can take me just like 5 months to write a book and have it completely revised and edited. But Sky's End is a young adult fantasy, and it's about 500 pages long, and so that one took a lot longer. That one probably took about a year.